Here's some unfortunate truth. When you explain who you are and what you do, people immediately judge you and they immediately put you into one of three buckets. They either say you're a newbie, you're just starting out, or they say you're a worker bee, you're someone who I can pay just an hourly rate, or they say you're a key person of influence, you really seriously know what you're talking about and I would be lucky to work with you. The exact same person, depending on what they draw from and what they explain about themselves, is either going to sound like they're doing something new or they're leveraging incredibly valuable intellectual property and they should be taken seriously.
Making $1 million a year, what do you feel like was the biggest step?
It was very much about repeating what works. I see a lot of people, they go to the well, they put a bucket down the well and it comes up with water in the bucket. And then they go, oh, okay, now what do I do? It's like, go back to the well.
How can someone utilize a wait list to create like urgency when creating a product?
I never launch product. I only ever launch the waiting list to see if people want the product. Products and services don't make money. Products and service ecosystems make money. The biggest mistake is that you think people care, have time for you, and don't judge you. And people do judge you, they don't have any time and they don't care.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 126 of the 505 podcast. Today we got Daniel Priestley in the house. Now he's wrote multiple books, he's sold businesses for millions of dollars, and he is the creative coach behind some of your favorite creators on the internet. There is a very high chance that the people that you're watching on YouTube, Daniel is behind the scenes helping them actually run their businesses. He is the man.
Brayden, this was, I want to say, one of my favorite podcasts we've done selfishly because at the end, you guys are going to want to stick around. We did a full live workshop where Daniel breaks down our brand of 505 and teaches us the 5 Ps, how to become a key person of influence and really take our brand to the next level. I'm telling you guys, when Brayden and I finished and he left, we couldn't stop talking about it because we were like, oh my God, like we just got a masterclass in business.
These are strategies that you guys can directly apply to anything that you're doing, whether you're 1 person, 3 people, 10 people, you run a 100-person company, it's going to apply. And also, we just want to let you know that our cohort is now live and it's only going to be on sale for the next few days. Anything else you want to add?
Spots are limited.
Yes.
And spots are filling up. It'll never be this cheap again. We want to help you guys take your creative business to the next level. If that is something that you're interested in, you can check out the first link in the description.
Let's get into this episode. Come on.
All right, Daniel, give me the one-handed crack right off the bat.
How did you discover that you are talented with this? I'm not going to do it on the...
You're scaring me. You started it on the table. You got to pick it up and then
I almost had a foul.
You almost had a fault.
Can I get like a I want like Eye of the Tiger.
I do that every week. I admire the determination.
I admire the determination. You made it happen. I don't know if I've ever seen a can so dented. We're gonna get a 2.3 out of 10. Welcome to the show.
There we go. Yeah. All right.
All right, Brayden, show them how it's done.
I'm gonna show you how it's done.
I don't know my own strength.
It's the key is the fingers got to kind of go on the side, and it's just all finesse.
Just finesse. Look at the elegance, the simplicity.
Costas will have a very similar one to you.
Have you?
That's one of the best ones. That's one of the best ones he's ever done.
So I should have been more like elegant about it.
I learned that about 120 episodes in, that you got to kind of grab it.
Come in from the side.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I've learned something today.
Cheers, my friend. So happy to have you here. All the way from the UK.
Yeah, from London.
Gosh, so how long have you been in town for in Los Angeles? What was the reason why you popped down?
Just family, hanging out Sunday, summer holidays. So we did 3 weeks in Canada and then 3 or 4 weeks in LA. So we've been in the Palisades and then we've been in this other, we ended up living in a castle, like a proper like 1980s epic. Someone made a ton of money in the 80s, built a castle, and now we're living in that castle.
Incredible.
And it's got like a water slide and it's wild.
How fun.
You came over with a few books and we got the chance to check out some of these books before you popped over. And one of them is Key Person of Influence. Mm-hmm. Tell me for someone who has no idea what Key Person of Influence is, what does that mean exactly?
So I wrote that book in 2009, 2010 it came out. Wow. This is way before personal brand was a thing. So no one was talking about influencers. That wasn't even a word. This idea of using personal brand as a front end thing. There was a few people who were famous for this, like Steve Jobs, but the vast majority of business leaders, this was like completely random idea. This was not something that you would do. Maybe at the time, if you were a famous kind of like CEO who had retired, you might do a book and a speaking tour. But the vast majority of people hadn't considered how they would build a personal brand as a strategy. So I wrote one of the very first books on this, and out came Key Person of Influence in 2010, and it's just sold. Every single year for 15 years, it has just been one of these ones where people adopt the Key Person of Influence strategy. In the book is the 5 Ps: pitching, publishing, products, profile, and partnership. And it takes you through why those things are important and why that's the commercial strategy that you need. And basically, like, thousands of business owners have gone through the process of doing the 5 Ps and being key people of influence.
I'd love to dive into each of the 5 Ps and kind of what they mean exactly.
Before we dive in 2009, when you wrote the book, it wasn't really a thing at the time, like you said. So what sparked the idea to kind of go all in on this idea of the key person of influence?
There were 2 things. So I had been running an event marketing company where we would get professional speakers to come and speak at our events, and we would hire speakers for $10,000, $20,000. These were the early sharks from Shark Tank and dragons from Dragon's Den. A few business leaders had written books, and we would bring these people up onto stage, and we'd end up with we ended up with events of like between 500 and 2,500 people coming along to these quite regularly. And a couple of things. I had seen the force of nature of what happens when someone becomes a personal brand. People are queuing up for 3 hours to just hand over a business plan or to get a photo. So I saw that really early. Before it was a thing, I could see people, how much they wanted to connect with a personality brand, especially in business. And so I started paying attention to that through my own business and trying to pick the right people to get on a stage, because the right person would pull a big crowd. 2008 comes along, and there's this campaign called Obama Everywhere, which was the first Barack Obama campaign. So I have this belief that the US presidential election is like the Formula One of marketing. So in Formula One, they develop technology that they then roll out in normal cars. So ABS braking, for example, was in the Formula One, and then they rolled that out to every car, got that technology. So the US presidential election is like that for business. So going back to the 1930s, Franklin Roosevelt created the fireside radio chat, and then radio overtook newspaper. And then in 1960, Nixon versus JFK was the first televised debate, and JFK was very good on television. And that he became the first television president, and then television became the big marketing and business strategy. So there's all these examples where the world changes because of this kind of US presidential election, because it's so savage, it's so fierce. So then fast forward to 2008, the very first time a presidential election had been centered on social media campaigns. So Barack Obama did this whole thing about building his personal brand on social media. And he had the Obama Everywhere campaign. He was responding on Twitter. He was putting out YouTube videos every week. He was like 10 times more present on social media than any other candidate. And he comes out of nowhere and wins the election. So I knew that that moment was a tipping point where social media had gone from something that kids were doing in college to something that businesses would take seriously at that time. So I wrote that book. Fast forward to 2016, data analytics won the presidential election.
I remember this. I watched that documentary. Unbelievable.
Cambridge Analytica.
God.
So I wrote the book Scorecard Marketing, which is how to collect and segment, use data more effectively. And I've basically, since 2000, built a massive software business called ScoreApp based on the insights that I got from the 2016 Cambridge Analytica. I went, how do you do Cambridge Analytica but for small business?
And I noticed on your website, like, we have this scorecard for entrepreneurs, right? And so they can go on and get testing done and say, hey, this is what I really need to work on in my business. But it also, for you and your business, you get to see, wow, this is what all these various entrepreneurs are at from the very beginning to the guys at the tip top of their game. It's awesome. It's absolutely incredible.
You were also telling us before the episode started that when you were first starting out, you were taking out ads in the paper because social media didn't exist.
It didn't, yeah.
Can you share that story? Because it's so interesting.
Yeah, well, my first business, I was 21 years old, and there was no social media, so you had to take out an ad in the newspaper. A quarter-page ad was $8,000 in 2002 money, so probably the equivalent, like it would be the equivalent of you guys running an ad for 20 grand.
I didn't even realize that when you first told us, because like $8,000 today is still a lot of money.
Tons. Yeah.
Well,
if you're running that on Facebook ads, it'd be, that's a good sample size.
Well, this would be the minimum viable ad that you could run would be $8,000 back then. So this would be like, imagine this. Imagine if you wanted to test an idea using Facebook ads and Facebook had a policy that's like minimum $20,000.
Insane.
Yeah. So that's what it was like. So I ran the ad, we generated leads, we set appointments, we booked people into events, and from an $8,000 spend, we then had people come along to a conference. Conference venue held 80 or 90 people. It was $2,000. We did a joint venture with a financial planning company, and we ended up making $35,000 worth of sales, and keeping about $28,000 minus about $12,000 in overhead. So then I repeated that 43 times in the first year. And I made 1.3 million in sales and 900,000 cost, 400,000 profit. And that was my first year in business.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. It's actually insane to just hear about someone like you who's just, obviously you're an entrepreneur at heart, right? You started off doing this and looking at the paper, right? Like, and now it's funny to hear like our age, like I remember my grandpa.
How old are you guys?
I'm 27, Coast is 29.
Nice.
But I remember vividly, like when I was a young kid, my grandpa every single morning at 5:30 a.m. because we'd go out to the horse race track, right?
Yep.
Story behind the watch. We'd go to the racetrack at 6 a.m. and the paper boy would come at 5:30 and I would be outside with him going to work and the guy would throw it. I'd go get the paper. That was my job. Bring it in. And he would read it at the table every day for like 30 minutes. And then we'd go to work.
And young kids, they start their life being paper boys.
My dad did.
My
dad had
my
paper
grandpa
route.
too. That's so funny, dude.
The newspaper was a big deal. Like it was a really big deal up until like 2005, 2010. The newspaper was like everyone read the paper.
And you said you were 24 your first year of business?
21.
Making 400K?
Yeah. So from 21 to 22, before my 23rd birthday, I had 400,000 in the bank. And
back then, 400K is like...
It was a house.
Double it.
You could well, actually, even if you measure it in houses, like 400 grand was a big house. You could buy a dream home for 800 grand. So it was like like $1 million home back in 2002 was like a massive house. Not like today, it's a flat. But then in year 3, so I kept going. In year 3, we did 10.7 million. We did $1 million. We got to $1 million a month.
Now, what do you feel like were some of the biggest takeaways from going to where you're profiting solid money, you have like a small team, and now we're going to $10 million a year. We're profiting $1 million a month, $12 million a year.
We weren't profiting $1 million a month. We were making $1 million a month in revenue. Sorry.
So making $1 million a year, what do you feel like was the biggest step right there?
So it was very much about repeating what works. So I see a lot of people, they go to the well, they put a bucket down the well and it comes up with water in the bucket. And then they go, oh, okay, now what do I do? It's like, go back to the well and get more water out of the well. Like, you're an idiot. Like, repeat what works. You're doing something that works. Repeat it. Oh, but that's a bit boring. That's business, right? Repeat what works is such a strategy that not many people do. So what happened for me is I found a strategy that worked. I'd worked for a mentor and seen the strategy work for my mentor. I repeated and copied what I'd learned. So I did it for myself. So I did 2 years for a mentor, 19 to 21. And then I did a year of doing it for myself. And then I made a couple of changes. We were selling financial services packages that averaged about, the initial was about $3,000 to sign on with the financial planner. And we were capturing a lot of that. I think 70% of that was ours. They would take the trailing income and the trailing commission, but we would get the vast majority of the sign-up fee. And then I thought to myself, actually, I accidentally stumbled upon franchises and discovered that franchises sell for $50,000 to $60,000, and that the same process would sell franchises. But rather than selling a $3,000 thing, we could sell a $60,000 thing. So wow. I switched my marketing approach of running ads in the paper, running a conference. So basically my whole first business was an introduction to blank was the business, right? So the key insight was that people try and sell the main thing that they sell by trying to talk about the main thing. And my key insight was, don't talk about the main thing that you do. Educate people first in a conference environment. So run an introduction event and promote that as though it's the main thing. And then when they're there, give them all the information and the knowledge as to why they would then want to do the other thing. So like, don't try and say we're a financial planner and we want an award. It's like, come along to an introduction to financial planning for busy professionals, an introduction to financial planning for a sideways market, which was one of the things that was happening at the time.
It was like you literally discovered to give value first before you ask.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wild theory.
Seriously, back in the day. I mean, it's crazy too, though. Now you still see businesses messing that up where they're trying to just say, give us your money right off the bat and not providing any sort of value.
Yeah, they just expect you to be a mind reader. So this was true for the franchises. So I went to the Franchise Expo, and at the Franchise Expo, there were 300 franchises all exhibiting, and all of them were just like trying to give you their franchise pack and try to sign you up. And as a person who was attending that show, it was totally overwhelming. It's like, well, you know, do you want me to mow lawns or wash dogs or open a burger restaurant? There's just so many things. And like, it was just everyone saying, oh, here's our franchise and here's our franchise agreements. And like, and some of them were like, sign an NDA and then we'll send you. It's like, dude, there's 300 opportunities here, right? So I found there was one CEO who I got talking to, and I found that he was open to a different approach. I told him how we were selling financial services. And he went, would that work for franchise? And I said, absolutely, let's do a test. So we ran the ads to do this. We had like 80, 90 people show up. We did an introduction just to that franchise. They're not overwhelmed. They've only got one thing to consider. Either don't do anything or do this. So we then presented the franchise and we showed them all of that. We then, from there, we invited them to go to a 3-day business planning conference where they would actually do their business plan for joining the franchise. And at the end of the 3 days of planning, they would make a decision as to whether they wanted to join or not. So this ramped them up massively. So we went these guys went from selling $1 million worth of franchises across 3 years to like just exploding as a national franchise. So basically that was it. I went from selling something that was $3 or $4 grand, discovering that we could sell something that was 60 grand, and then going from Brisbane to Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne.
Wow. Amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. Now, let's go back and dive into the 5 Ps because I think they're super important, and I think you really dive into everything that someone needs to become a key person of influence. So let's start with the first P.
So the first P is pitching. Okay. So pitching is when someone asks you, what do? You need to have a prepared social pitch. Here's some unfortunate truth. When you explain who you are and what you do, people immediately judge you and they immediately put you into one of 3 buckets. They either say you're a newbie, you're just starting out, or they say you're a worker bee, you're someone who I can pay just an hourly rate, or they say you're a key person of influence, you really seriously know what you're talking about, and I would be lucky to work with you, and I would really want to jump through hoops to work with you. And largely that depends on how you introduce yourself. So let's take you guys, for example. If you were to introduce yourselves and say, hey, we've just launched a podcast and blah, 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 you know, you're going to sound like a whole bunch of young people who have launched a podcast. If you say, I used to run the social media for the LA Lakers and I've got a background doing this, and now we're putting together this strategic play and blah. So the exact same person, depending on what they draw from and what they explain about themselves, is either going to sound like they're doing something new or they're leveraging incredibly valuable intellectual property and they should be taken seriously. Now, if someone doesn't take you seriously, the first thing to know is that's your fault. It's not their fault. If they look at you and think you're a newbie and you know you're not a newbie, that's your fault. You didn't pitch yourself correctly. So you got to take ownership of that. You got to say, it's on me. I didn't explain my background. I didn't give them the information that they needed in order for them to take me seriously. So I got to improve on that.
That is so interesting because I think many of the creators that listen to our show, we have a lot of filmmakers, a lot of photographers that are trying to start and really run and get to this like high 6-figure, 7-figure mark in their creative businesses. And I think when you're young and you're starting out, like that intro meeting with these clients and they're not taken seriously, they're not working with these brands. They're like, oh, we're doing a $500 piece of content, or, you know, it's the difference of when you get on with an agency or someone who's done this work. It's like, the minimum we're going to do this for is $55,000. And they take you, it's crazy too, because in our space, what we've noticed is these higher end clients, the $200 clients, it's like, hey, when's that coming through? Like, we really need this. The $50K clients are just like, the money's been sent. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to the shoot. they know exactly how you're going to operate. When you have that process and they feel like they're coming on to not just like, oh, we're winging it, we don't know what the heck we're doing. It's like you have a proven system to kind of take them through. Hey, this is our intro call. Next week we're going to have our pre-production meeting. Then the week after we're going to have the shoot. 5 days later you have all the content in your inbox. It's such a well-oiled machine. It doesn't feel like, you don't even know what you're doing getting into it.
I'm going to just slightly tweak that. What you're describing is definitely the difference between newbie and worker bee, right? But you also don't want to be seen as a worker bee, because once they know you're not a newbie, if they think, oh yeah, this is just a professional operation, this is just they're good at what they do, they're professional, we pay them professional rates, they're still seeing you as a worker bee. And that's fine. You're going to get paid and you're going to make profit. But you're not going to make super normal profit. You're not going to blow up.
Okay.
Right? You have to add a layer of icing to that cake, which is that not only are you damn good at what you do, not only are you proficient, it's not your first rodeo, you've done this many times, but there's this other layer that you're a key person of influence for something. So I'll give you an example. My sister runs a very successful film production business, and she has perfected the art of working with big publicly listed companies or really big brands. Secrecy is their major thing. They don't want like anything to leak, all of this sort of stuff. She has an entire ability to position her as the only option, the only key person, the only one who gets it, that they have financial obligations, that they have regulations that they have to stick with, and that she's above and beyond everyone else who thinks it's about the film production. The film production for her is just like the base layer. The actual reality of what she does is this whole, like, how does she work with senior people who are like senior executives who earn huge money and have secrecy and like they have to release it at a certain time, right? All of this sort of stuff. So because she knows all about that information, she doesn't even come in and talk about the film production, right? So she's like the only one they've spoken to who gets it. So that's an example of just being that little bit layer up. But then there's layers on top of that as well. So, you want to present to people, I have intellectual property that's very hard to find. So for example, if you said, my background's running Hyundai or LA Lakers, and you say, who would stand the most to gain from that? You just go, okay, so other major sporting brands or emerging sporting brands, right? So let's say there's a super funded golf tour, right? That's funded by Saudis, right? And you might say to them, look, we can take the valuable intellectual property as to how to blow up a sporting brand, and we can apply unique intellectual property that's very hard to find. And you could say, look, I'm not the best for all the things, but I'm definitely the best for sporting brands, sporting teams. So you're positioning yourself as that key person of influence at a particular thing. Underneath it all, you're essentially, imagine that there's this thing called intellectual property. And this intellectual property is your unique know-how. It's the know-how that very few people have. So it's precious to a certain number of people. It's precious to a certain type of person. And it's like, that's what we need. So your pitch is letting people know that I've got this precious thing called intellectual property. It doesn't work for everyone, but for the right person or the right brand, this is what I know how to do, and no one knows how to do this. Now, as soon as you're into that realm, now you're at key person of influence level.
And you're leveraging now. Yeah. We're leveraging, not just being in the weeds, pitching them the content that you're making.
When it comes to a pitch, how can someone refine their pitch so that when they first meet someone, they're not telling their whole life story?
That's a great example. That's a great point, because a great pitch is not a Wikipedia page, and it's not therapy either. I especially in LA, everyone thinks a pitch is therapy.
Actually, you ever meet someone and they just like tell you their whole life story?
Yeah. There's that, and then actually no, the other one is that in LA, everyone thinks that their pitch is their travel schedule.
That's so true.
Going to Italy and
I just went to this thing, right? It was such an LA party last night, and I'm like meeting all these people, and I'm like, oh, tell me a bit about you. And everyone starts the sentence, well, I just got back from this. I just got back from Paris with the Olympics. I'm like, okay. And I'm heading out to Dubai, and like suddenly I've got this whole travel schedule, and it's like, okay, that's great. Cool.
I don't know anything about it.
I still don't know one thing.
I don't know anything other than you travel a lot. That's cool, right? Are you a travel agent? So
This is the owner of TripAdvisor.
yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of pitches. There's what I would call a social pitch, a scheduled pitch, and a sales pitch. So a social pitch is a social situation, and what you're trying to do, you don't really know who you're talking to. You're trying to get across enough information for them to either be hooked or turned off. And it's great if they're turned off. If you give a good social pitch and they go, oh, okay, it's not for them. Fine, you just saved yourself 15 minutes of wasted time. You can talk to someone else. So here's what a social pitch has. Social pitch is name. What is your name and your company name? A lot of people just skip that. So they think that everyone just magically knows their name and their company name. But you need to restate, I'm Daniel Priestley. I'm the founder and the CEO of Score App, right? So that's a name. Same. What are you the same as? We're a software company. We create software for small businesses that want to generate more leads. Okay, cool. Same. I understand the same. Claim to fame. Recently, we just won Scale Up of the Year in Great Britain. So the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, we won the Scale Up Award for our fast growth. We have 6,500 customers across 150 countries now, and we were launched just a few years ago, right? So that's name, same, claim to fame. So it sounded like, okay, here's his name, here's what he does, and I understand what he does. Sounds boring. Oh, heck, he's like actually doing some interesting stuff. It's claim to fame. Goal and a game, or aim and a game. So aim, what am I aiming at in the next 90 days? And I might say in the next 3 months, we're expanding deeper into the USA, right? So we've been focused mostly outside of the USA, but now we're coming into the USA. Big game. We are developing Cambridge Analytica for small businesses to grow. We're using the insights that we learned from studying the Cambridge Analytica story, which was data analytics for growth, under the radar growth, and we've put that into a software package that any small business can use. And it's like, oh, okay, name, same, fame, aim, and a game. Now you should be able to get that into 30 or 40 seconds, and you got to practice it. You got to record it on the phone, be critical of yourself, and get prepared for that. But it works a hell of a lot better than a travel schedule.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm gonna replay that moment in the pod, and we're gonna get it down. I think all of you listening should practice that at home. I think that's a great exercise.
I think what we need to do is every morning when we walk into the kitchen, hit me with your pitch.
Hit me with your pitch. Give it to me.
Yeah, now
I love it.
Yeah, shark style.
Yeah, literally. That's what we're gonna do for our new friends that come over. Pop in, give us the pitch. What do you got? What do you got? It's so interesting though, because I think, especially being out here, that is what people are talking about. You meet them. What do you do? That's immediately the first thing that people in Los Angeles always ask you. And I feel like some people, you're so right, they always go into the trips that they're doing, or they just completely go on a tangent and never flip it back on you. They're just going for like 10 minutes. You haven't even said one word. They're like, God, that Brayden guy was great. I don't know what he does, but that was an awesome conversation.
So would you tweak it? You said there's 3 different types of pitches.
Yeah, so social pitch is like you don't know the person, but you just want to give 30 seconds, powerful, give them enough to go hooked or not hooked. Scheduled pitch is when you know that you are meeting someone, you've booked an appointment with them, they have blocked time out to hear from you. They know that they're sharing something with you. Now, this is when I used to run my introduction events way back in the day. We had to create a pitch presentation where people know that they're there for that. That's like not a surprise. They're there because they want to get that information. So the way you structure that information is either going to be really respectful of their time, or it's going to be like a waste of their time. So for that one, we use the capstone pitch, and this is clarity. So making sure they're clear about what we talk about. Authority. Why should you listen to me? What have you done in the past? What's the background? So clarity, authority, problem and solution. Authority can also be traction. What have you achieved so far? So clarity, authority, problem, solution, the why, the bigger purpose, opportunity. What's the big opportunity for you? Next steps, how do you take action? And then what's the essence? How do I want to leave you feeling? What's the last remaining memory that I want you to have in that presentation? So 15 minutes to 90 minutes is a perfect amount of time for a presentation. And you want to go through clarity, authority, problem, solution, the why, opportunity, next steps, the essence. It spells out capstone. I've had situations where I've been thrown into a pitching situation and I've got a few minutes to prepare. And I get a 1 page and I write the letters capstone down the side of the page, and I just bullet point, boom, 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 boom. I'm going to cover that. And I'm like, good. And then I pitch like a total boss,
It's nice that it spells out a word.
Yeah, because you can remember it.
Yeah, that makes it so much easier. And do you feel like when you go into those meetings without a plan and you just have to pop in 90 seconds or 2 minutes, you have that in your back pocket of, I know exactly I can go down the capstone route?
Yeah. Wow. And sometimes it's a conversation. So sometimes I have my capstone prepared and then I park it and we just talk. But mentally, I'm going through capstone. Like mentally, I'm checking off the bases, right? And it might be a two-way conversation. So that happens all the time as well. But at least I have the bases that I want to hit. Like, and in baseball, it's like I'm just going to get there and then I'm going to steal this one and then I'm going to there and I go, right? So at the right time, I'm going to move from base to base. So it's capstone. I'm just going to make sure. Clarity, have you got it? Authority, do you know why you should listen to me? Boom. Problem, do you understand the problem that I solve? Right, so I'm just going to...
You're kind of like a Jedi. Like the person thinks you're just having a normal conversation, but you're going down the list.
You're walking them down the path.
Down the path you must go.
Yeah. That's incredible. Let's get into the second P, which is publishing.
Yeah. So publishing is... the word publish means to make public, right? So you've got this intellectual property in your head. You know stuff. You worked... How many years did you do with LA Lakers?
5 years.
5 years. And with Hyundai?
That's our other,
the other guy.
Other guy. I do a lot of like concert and social media, like
Amazing.
brand deals and stuff, which I've been doing for a while.
Right. So here's the thing. When you are swimming in the water, you forget about the water. It's around you and you just take it for granted, right? So there's this old saying about like the fish doesn't even know what water is because he swims in the water every day. When you are hanging out doing deals and when you're working with the Lakers and all that sort of stuff, you eventually become so close to it that you don't recognize that you've got this valuable intellectual property, but you start forming opinions, you start forming strategies and playbooks, and these things just become taken for granted. Now, there has to be this moment where you slow your brain down and you say, what are my 7 pillars for getting a great brand deal? What are the 5 things that have to happen in order to get a really great social media engagement, right? So you have to start going through, what do I know? What is my actual intellectual property here? So the way that you do that is you write. You might write an article, you might write a blog, you might write a post, you might write a book, and you unpack your intellectual property. And then the way you let the world know that you've got this intellectual property is you make it public. So you publish it. So you're putting things out there and making those things public. So for example, I have a way of pitching called capstone. If that's in my head, right, then there's no way, like I might do it intuitively, but at some point I had to sit down and go, how do I pitch? And then I had to come up with a word that would spell it out. And then by sharing that with the world, everyone's like, oh, I need to learn more about that capstone thing, right? So suddenly people see me as being more valuable than I was a minute ago because they're like, oh, you've got intellectual property that you were willing to share publicly.
I feel like we often forget if we're doing something every day, it becomes second nature and you forget that people don't know how to do what you're doing.
That's it.
Especially in LA, like for us, right? Doing photography and video, we're surrounded by so many talented people. And like our circle, like the circle of friends that we hang out with in our network are people doing like incredible things in photography and video. So in my head, I find myself naturally just being like, oh, well, like everyone knows this,
right?
But it's not true.
And it's the same for every industry. If you work in finance,
sure,
everyone you know is doing $1 billion deals. Like everyone's working on $1 billion deal. So it's not even a special thing. But if you go out and talk to other people about these are the 5 things we look for when we value a company at $1 billion, everyone's like, whoa, that's incredible. In the story of Superman, on his own home planet, he didn't have superpowers because everyone had the same DNA. But when he goes to a different planet, he has all these superpowers. It's very much like that. In your own industry, in your own circle, you've got no superpowers. But as soon as you go to a different planet, you've got superpowers. Even take something like LA Lakers. In the world of sport, it's like, yeah, that's a really well-respected brand and that's great. But, there are plenty of people who have worked in those brands. But if you were to take what you learned from LA Lakers and said, actually, how does this apply to banking and finance? Like, how do you make a banking and finance company cool and engaging with a younger audience? How do you use what we learned at LA Lakers? How do we use that intellectual property to recruit talented young people to Goldman Sachs? Right now
we're talking.
Now that is
something here,
right? That is basically the Superman principle of inside my planet, everyone's got superpowers, so it's not special. If I were to go to a different planet, suddenly those superpowers go to 11, right? They're all...
I mean, you think about you're just getting my mind turning right now. I'm not going to be able to sleep for the next like 48 hours, but it's so interesting because you take all of the big banks, right? You got Chase, we got Bank of America, right? And they're always trying to get the tip top talent. And they're also trying to always acquire new customers. And if you take what you've learned, from a lot of you listening to this, right? You might be working in one specific industry and you're kind of tapped out in that space. Look
adjacent.
Look to the side and see what other spaces that you can tap into using this knowledge that you have from creating a brand, building identity, and go take it to this other space that might be struggling with it. I mean, the banks suck at social media.
Of course.
I mean, let's be real. I mean,
Yeah.
awful, right? And
Yeah.
they're trying to always acquire new customers, man. They need people to put their money in the banks.
Absolutely. And they need people to feel positive and excited. And like, imagine if you could just take a fraction, 10% of the energy and excitement that people feel for a sporting team and make that level of just emotional uplift at all with a bank, and suddenly they would be the leading bank. So now how would that happen? It would only happen if you do two things. You take your experiences and you write about your experiences and you unpack your frameworks and you unpack your intellectual property, you unpack your stories. And then secondly, you make public. So publish is to make public. So you take those ideas and you put them on LinkedIn, you put them on social media, you put them on a podcast, put them on video, you maybe even write a book. And then you go, boom, now I've published this. Now, especially if you know that, let's say you had a strategy that you want to work with boring brands to give them a bit of LA Laker vibe, then you could say, all right, so I'm going to say what every bank could learn from sporting teams, and you publish that and you make that public. Now that only needs to hit with a few executives on LinkedIn, and they go, we got to get this guy. Like, we have to get this guy. Pay him anything. Just get him in here. Don't let him talk to anyone else. Like, let's get this guy in.
That's genius.
Brilliant.
My mind's kind of blown right now.
Brilliant, Daniel. Absolutely unbelievable. What's number 3?
Well, wait.
Oh, go. Go for it. Tell me.
When it comes to publishing, you do have a specific framework, a 7-11-4 framework. Is that correct? Could you explain that?
So 7-11-4 is 7 hours, 11 interactions, 4 locations or 4 platforms. And it's based on research. I won't go into all the research, but it's based on research that the way we fall in love with brands, the way we fall in love with people, the way we connect and feel positive is through 7-11-4. So 7-11-4 is I've spent 7 hours, 11 interactions or 4 platforms with this person. I feel like I know them. I feel like I get who they are. So if you take someone famous and you say, well, like for example, if you saw Justin Bieber walking down the street, right, you would go, oh, it's Justin Bieber. Now, it's not because you know him. It's because over the course of your life, there's been at least 11 interactions where he's been named and you've seen his name, his face, and something about him. So your brain has actually stored Justin Bieber in your head somewhere. And it's like, yeah, that's a familiar face, a familiar person, not because you know them, but because you've been exposed to them. So that exposure has led to you having a place in your head called Justin Bieber. There's a set of neurons in your brain that is reserved for Justin Bieber, believe it or not. So that was a 7-11-4 process. When a celebrity dies, David Bowie or Prince or something like that, and you go, oh, damn, like that sucks. Not because you knew them, but because 7-11-4, right? So it's the same that every brand needs to do. Every brand, if they want a relationship at scale with more people, they need to have 7 hours of content, 11 interactions ready to go, 4 locations. They need to be strategic about their 7-11-4 strategy. So you've got to publish enough stuff. When I'm working with startup entrepreneurs or scale up businesses, one of the things that we look at is just purely and simply, do you have 7-11-4 architecture in place? Like, are you 7-11-4 ready? And a simple question is, if I blocked out tomorrow from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock, could I fill the entire day with good stuff about you and your brand, right? And for scalable brands, the answer is of course, like easy. And for businesses that are failing or struggling, it's like, oh, not really. Like there's some old stuff, but you'd have to go looking for it and like it wouldn't be easy and all that sort of stuff. In the lead up to this podcast, did you watch any of my other podcasts?
So many of your podcasts.
Okay. Do you reckon you got to 7-11-4?
Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I walk through the door, you're like, hey, there's the real guy. There's the Dan, right? I know him.
But it's the podcast and the Instagram reels
And the books.
and
all the touch points. Yeah.
That's so interesting. We also feel like with the podcast, it's nice too, because instead of when you first meet someone, right? Like we're having an hour and a half long conversation. We feel like it almost expedites the process.
Totally.
Of like, you feel like you know the person a lot more, and you have built a relationship based off of, instead of just having like a 10-minute conversation when you first meet somebody.
Yeah, it feels like you've sat down and had some sort of an intimate conversation with someone. So there's all of that. But ultimately, the research just says 7-11-4. If by the time someone has listened to episodes an hour and a half, so by the time someone's listened to 5 episodes, they know you guys.
Yeah.
At 5 episodes in, something shifts where it's like, this is not just a podcast I stumbled across, this is a podcast I follow.
It's so interesting too, because I feel like when I meet people that listen to the show, it's like we're best buddies immediately. And they do know a lot about us. And we were talking about this a minute ago, like people that listen to our show and really are binging it, they are talking to us more than a lot of their closest friends. And it's really wild to think about the people that you're consuming in your ears. If you're listening to hours of the podcast or hours of YouTube or whatever, you really do know a lot of these people. If they're being authentic, they're being themselves, you know them more than like you talk to us more than probably some of our best friends talk to us.
And
if you're hanging out,
deeper
conversations.
The other thing too, you talked about my background with newspapers in 2002, 22 years ago. Back in that particular time, if you wanted to hear something like this, you had to pay hundreds of dollars. They arrived in little CDs or cassette tapes, and you had to pay for these cassette tape series. People used to join multi-level marketing companies like Amway, not for the opportunity, but because Amway used to send you effectively what is a podcast every week. Like these multi-level marketing companies used to send you inspirational or motivational conversations on cassette, and people would pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have access to these kind of things because it didn't exist. Tony Robbins, he sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of CD sets, this personal power thing.
Yes, I remember.
My mom had it.
Jim Rohn was his mentor, correct? Yeah, Jim Rohn.
And this was because we didn't have podcasts available. Like if you wanted to get something knowledgeable, you had to pay hundreds of dollars for this. It was a rare thing. So a lot of people who are, say, under 30 at the moment, they take for granted that you can sit down and have these conversations. Like this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, this is actually an amazing time. You guys are allowing people to have certain level conversations that most people never had access to unless you were born in an elite family.
Yeah. Wow. It's insane. Just the level of information that people have access to right now is exponential. There's no excuse for you to not go after something and build a business or do something that you want to do because you have AI at your hand right now. You have every single podcast. And I mean, think about the level of valuable free information right now.
But the warning to everyone is you are choosing to brainwash yourself with something. Choose wisely. So, you get these people these days who are into socialism and they're just like listening to all this nonsense that's deeply either A, wrong, or B, non-productive for having a happy life. And they're just like into these like deep conversations that lead you to become a miserable human being. And they're just going to listen to all that stuff. And it's like even if it were true, which it's not, why would you want to do that to yourself? Why would you choose to go down that rabbit hole? Like you got to choose wisely.
I heard Gary Vee talk about this, how he said, you are your algorithm. So like whatever you're deciding to consume on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, it's going to give you more of that. So you're right. You got to be careful of like what you do choose to watch because it's just going to feed you more of it.
You can build an argument for anything.
Yeah.
You really can. You can totally build an argument that the earth is flat, right? There are people who believe that.
Yeah.
So
you get fed that every single damn day.
And then you completely buy into it. Like, let's say I'm wrong that this is not a great time to be an entrepreneur. This is not really an amazing time for business. And that objectively, there is plenty of evidence against the fact that there's not really that many opportunities now, and it would have been better to be born at a different time. Let's say objectively that were true, but my belief, because of what I consume, is that this is a great time and entrepreneurship's great, and there's all these business opportunities. Me personally, I end up building a $50 million software company, even though it wasn't true. Sorry, guys, I fucked up. Right? I accidentally built a $50 million company.
My bad.
My bad.
Speaking of building stuff and building a product, that is the third P, correct?
Yeah.
So can we go into product?
Absolutely. So product ecosystem is really important. It's not enough to have a profile. It's not enough to be famous. Not enough to have a great pitch. You got to have product ecosystem around you. You got to have ways of making money. The powerful sentence here is products and services don't make money. Products and service ecosystems make money. So think about someone like Gordon Ramsay, the famous chef. So there's Gordon Ramsay, the brand. Then there's Gordon Ramsay restaurants, and there's probably 20 of those. And then there's Gordon Ramsay cookbooks. There's Gordon Ramsay TV shows and media. There's Gordon Ramsay social media. There's probably Gordon Ramsay approved software for restaurants that want to use his approach. There's like several different things in the ecosystem. There's also, he owns property portfolio where he has his restaurants and he owns the buildings that those restaurants are in. So the idea here is that if you were to pull it all apart and say, you know what, I'm just going to do the books. Books won't make any money. I'm just going to do the restaurants. Well, the restaurants lose money all the time. I'm just going to do the media. Media companies lose money all the time. But when you put it all together and you get an ecosystem effect, it all suddenly spits out a ton of profit. So we have to construct a product and service ecosystem. The first thing we have to do is stop selling time for money. Time for money is a lousy way to make money, right? You are so limited in the size and scale of what you can do if you're just selling time for money. So you got to say, I'm now in the business of intellectual property. I'm not in the business of time. I'm in the business of know-how. And I'm going to place that intellectual property into several products and services where you can access that intellectual property for free on a podcast, or we can build it for you with an agency that has an agency that leverages that IP. Or you can use my software where we've used that IP to develop software and you can download the software. Or you could take a course and buy the course and you can train your team on how to do it our way. So it's like, do you want to have some free? Do you want to have some cheap? Do you want to have some expensive? Do you want to have like done for you, done with you? Do you want a tool? Do you want a training? So you want to create an ecosystem. So take key person of influence, for example. I have an idea in 2009, 2010, people should build a personal brand. And I've got some IP around that, 5 Ps. So I create a book. So that's one way you can access it. I create online learning for free. That's another way you can access it. We create an accelerator program that's about 10 grand. And we've had 5,500 people come through that. That's another way you can access it. We've created some software associated with it. We've got an online login portal. We've got some super high intensity one-day training events. We've got a corporate training program. We've had some of the biggest brands in the UK take our corporate version of that and pay over $100,000 for that training to go into their corporation. So the same intellectual property is free right through to 100 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Ali Abdul went on Colin and Samir, and he originally said that he thought someone should build an audience and then create a product to sell. He said that he has then gone back on that original statement and said someone should have something to sell from the get. Do you agree with that?
You can approach it either way. So it really, in many cases, depends upon your personal circumstances. So I'm a father of 3 kids, and I have a big house and I have a big expensive life. So for me personally, I'm not in the position anymore where I can live cheap, build an audience, not worry about monetization, and then when I'm ready, turn on the tap. I'm in a position where if I do anything, it has to make a ton of money really fast, because that's like I'm just in a more established life. So if you're let's say you're in your 20s, you're single, you don't have kids, and you can live in a shared 3-bedroom flat and pay for 1 bedroom, and you can do a few little things that allow you to live, it's not a bad idea, especially like Ali when he was starting out. Like he didn't need a lot of money. So it's not a bad idea to build an audience and then learn about your audience and then launch a product that fits that audience. That's not a bad idea. If you are, like, let's say you have a family and you need $250,000 a year as your income just to keep the lights on, you're going to have a product and service ecosystem that signs up clients really fast. You're probably going to sign up corporate clients. You probably want 400 or 500 grand a year clients. But once that's working, now go out and scale a big audience so that you can really ramp that up. So either approach can work, and it's often down to your stage of life.
Wow. It's also interesting too, because I think a lot of the creators that are listening to this are in the sense that they are waiting for a client to come to their email. And it's a huge problem. And I mean, we're getting DMs about it all the time. And that is one of the biggest products we've been working on for these last 6 months, is helping creators get from a place where it's not like you're waiting for this email to magically pop into your inbox. And that is the reason why I think so many people are starving artists. And I think you have to have this approach that's like, you have to be split business and creative. It can't just be 100% creative. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting and it's all going to be about the art.
The best creatives are great business people.
100%.
Right? Behind the scenes, they are animals.
Yes.
I've worked with some of them, right? And I've worked with many of them. They've got a creative hat and a business hat, and they're strong on both. They're not sitting, there is no one who is a successful creative who is sitting around waiting for the email to come in. They are animals. They go after it. Ultimately, the end point that you have to end up with is that you end up with the ecosystem, regardless of where you start. So think of 4 products. These are the 4 products I want you to think about. Gift is something you can give away for free. Product for prospects is a first serious engagement where you engage with someone. Often you don't exchange money, but you exchange attention. Like you're really seriously, like I'm registering for something. But it might not be an expense, but it's a commitment of energy. A core product is a transformation. That's where I pay you to do something for me. I didn't have this in the past, and now I have it because I paid you. And then a product for clients, P for C, is an ongoing subscription product where you give me value every month. So a business that absolutely crushes has all 4: gift, product for prospects, core offering, product for clients. So you've got to have all 4 of those. Regardless of where you start, the business doesn't spit money out until you have all 4. It's all 4 that you need. And it's when you have all 4 that you really crush.
And really have an ecosystem that's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And you see it with the biggest creators in our space. I mean, you notice that they give you something for free. They're also providing tons of value. It's not like it's just, hey, come here, buy this thing. It's only one-way transactional. It's like they're giving you something amazing, whether it's this awesome piece of content.
Feels like a gift.
Yeah,
It feels like a gift.
It's a show. You're getting an amazing
And
thing.
often they put money into the show. Like often they're spending a ton of money just to produce the show.
Which is what we are. So I hope if you guys are here, like the damn video and drop us a comment. Help the boys out.
Subscribe, like,
do it all, baby.
Share it with a friend.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it's like we want this to be the reason why you guys go out and get jobs, the reason why you go out and start your business, and you have this roadmap that's free 99 to help you get there. It's amazing.
How can someone utilize a wait list to create like urgency when creating a product?
Great question. So I never launch product. I only ever launch the waiting list to see if people want the product. So for example, let's say you guys wanted to launch an agency and you said, we are going to launch an agency which is sports marketing for financial brands. And you're going to say, we discovered the secrets of blowing up big sporting brands. And we've discovered that there's intellectual property that's transferable to finance brands. And we have figured out how to make financial brands a little bit cool, a little bit interesting. It's going to result in you hiring more talent, getting better clients, and having people who refer and recommend you more often. If you're interested in that, it's launching in 2025, 4 months from now, let's say. Join the waiting list to receive our first proposal, right? So I, like, for example, I'm not going to launch an agency by hiring people and hiring an office and all of that sort of stuff. I'm going to launch an agency by launching a waiting list.
And seeing what is out there for that, yeah.
Now let's imagine that I go and promote the waiting list. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Chase, right? They're all signing up. Executives from all these things. Someone drops an email. Do you think this would work for our tech company? It's not finance, but it's tech. Could we get that? Yeah, that's going to be coming in 6 months' time. So join the waiting list. I'll add you to the waiting list for the tech company brands, right? So now, how would you feel? And imagine this too. The waiting list is name, email, and then answer 6 questions. One of the questions is, what is your budget for social media marketing in the year ahead? And you could say 50 grand a year, 150 grand a year, 500 grand a year. Now, how would you feel if you had a waiting list of 40 businesses, 40 brands that had ticked the box 500 grand for the year?
Now we're playing ball, Daniel.
Now we're playing ball. You've not hired anyone. You've not got any offices. You've not got a website. You've not got anything. You've just got a waiting list, right? So imagine that if you didn't get 40 people who ticked the 500 grand box, you don't launch the business. And when people say, whatever happened to that? And you say, you know what? We kept it under the radar, right? It's something that we just work with a certain, we've pivoted to something else, right? Whatever.
The first ever online business that I ever launched, I had a mentor, I had a coach that I paid a lot of money at the time that I did not have. And it was like a monthly thing. I think it was like $5,000 and we paid it like over a month. And I was like still in school, had literally no money, had to bust my ass to make that $5,000. And I remember this person that we met with, he was like, you guys have to, and there was like 10 of us on this thing. He's like, you guys have to launch a wait list and probe people to see if it's something that you'll actually buy. Cause I remember one person went on the thing, had already had a product built out. And then this person was like, so who's going to buy it? Who do you know is going to buy it? And he's like, I don't know if anyone's going to buy it, but I finished it. It's taken me a year to make it. And he goes, idiot.
Yeah.
Why have you wasted a year when we don't even know if the people that are in your audience or people that you know right now will pay for this product? And it was very eye-opening to me to build out these questions for people and just probe people and say, hey, is this something that you'd be interested in? Could this work for you? And I remember I took tons of calls to learn more about how I could make a product that I wanted to make better. And then by taking these 20 calls, I completely switched the product. And I learned so much information. I was like, I was going to go this way. And then I remember my mentor was like, that's way too broad. He goes, there's 100 people doing that. And I was like, damn, I really thought that was going to crush. He goes, you need to take calls with people and learn about where
Start
you can
narrow.
Exactly. Learn about what you can offer.
Go to those high value people. Sell first, then build.
Yep.
So you sell first, then build. So have you ever built software?
I have not built software.
Okay. So one of my mentors, when he was launching his software company, which went on to be sold for 120 million, he was going around with this deck of cards that looked like iPhones. And he was going out and meeting people face to face. And he had, I think it was 20 iPhone screenshots in the deck of cards. So he would sit there and he would say, okay, so here's the app. First, someone comes in and they log in here. And he'd throw that and he'd go, then this drop down menu appears and then they pick from there. So let's say they pick this, right? And then they log in and they create this account. And then this pops up and then they can upload their information here. And then this happens, right? And then this would happen this. And then your team, they can see on the back end here what's happening here, right? And he's walking people through with this little card deck. And it had just been designed by a designer, like graphic designer, 20 screenshots. So he goes out and he prints up, to print these, you print them on a big poster. And then you, with a pair of scissors, you cut them out by hand with a little scalpel. And then he probably, I don't know, had 30 that he printed up and made 30 of these. But every time he went and met with a potential client, he would write their notes on the back of the screenshot. And on the back of each screenshot, he would have like, these are the things that they wish, like, oh, why isn't there a button that says this? Or why can't I do this here? And he's like, great idea. So he writes that on the back. So he goes out and he has 30 sales meetings. There is no software. Like there's no software, no lines of code, nothing. But he's just having sales meetings. And at the end of 30 sales meetings, he knows exactly what they're willing to pay, what features they're most interested in, what they're not interested in. All of these things like come out of these 30 sales meetings. And then he had them all signed up on pre-sale agreements where once the software is ready, would you subscribe? And mind you, this particular software is more like $500 a month starting price. So it's enterprise software. So he ends up with like 10, 15 people saying, yeah, as soon as we're ready, we'll go ahead. So he's like got, $5,000 to $7,500 a month worth of pre-sales. And then he starts the process of raising some money and building the software and all of that. Now, what most people do is the complete opposite. They go build something for a year and a half.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh. And they're just wasting all this time. And you also don't know if they're going to buy the damn thing. Mm-hmm. You don't know if, and like you're saying, you're doing so much of this research up front and you can apply this to any type of company that you're building. You can apply it to anything. Go out and do the research and ask people and meet with them and see if it's something that can actually provide value to their companies.
Yeah. And so sell first, then build.
Yep. Incredible. Sell first, then build.
Okay, we got 2 more P's.
Yeah, 2 more.
The fourth one is profile.
Yep.
And when you say profile, you're not just talking about a social media profile. So can you explain what a profile is?
So a profile is how many people can see you from a distance. That's what a profile is. How do you look from a distance? If we think about a profile of a building, you stand back from the building, you can see the building from a distance. So it's like so what do you look like from a distance? A great way to think about profile is what happens when I Google you. If I Google your name and the front page of Google is like total boss, total boss, total boss, total boss, then it's like, this guy's a total boss, right? So that's going to be all the stuff that appears on Google. So a very harsh way to judge yourself is I am who Google says I am. right? So you then think to yourself, okay, let's have a look at what, like you obviously got to log out of your own phone because Google will tell you what you want to see, but you got to test on someone else's phone and say, just Google my name. I want to have a look at what you see when Google my name. Nothing really, nothing much. So now you have no profile. So we've got to begin the process of building the profile. So I look at 4 things, which is SALT. SALT is social media, which making sure all the accounts are aligned and they're great and they're clean. Awards and associations. So have you won awards or are you associated with brands that I've heard of? Making sure that comes up on Google. Live events, right? Are you a panelist? Are you a speaker? Can I see you on, I also class like YouTube videos that have been recorded live as live events. Can I see you performing, right? And then third-party platforms. So are you on other people's podcasts? Are you on other people's stages? Now, if you've got social awards and associations, live events, and third-party platforms, all of that goes up to Google. And then you look great when I Google you.
We both want to get more into public speaking because I feel like that would be super fun, but also kind of falls within the SALT method.
Yep.
Do you have personal advice for us of how we could maybe leverage what we're doing with this podcast and on social media to land speaking engagements?
My favorite way to get speaking engagements is just pay. So you find a conference and you say, can we sponsor the conference? And as part of that, can we do 30-minute speaking engagement? And as part of that, can we also, as part of the sponsorship, can I get the video footage? And can I get the like photos and all of that sort of stuff? Now, here's the funny thing. If you look at a typical little event sponsorship for a small conference, it might be $5,000. That's kind of going to be the cost of hosting a venue. Like if you were to put on your own event, venue, photography, video,
whole 9. Yeah,
$5,000.
Yeah,
easy.
Probably more.
Right?
Wait, yeah, probably more.
$5,000 to $10,000 you will burn so fast. So for me personally, when I wanted to speak, I had my product ecosystem, so I knew I was going to make money anyway, because every time I'm in front of an audience, money comes in. Even being on this, like someone will check out Score App or Dent, someone will become a client.
100%, yeah.
So I was just like, well, if I was going to run my own events, I know that's $5,000 to $10,000, so I'll just sponsor someone's event, $5,000-$10,000, little events, like 100, 200 people, right? But the most important thing was like, can I be a guest speaker? Can I get the footage? And, can we have a booth so that if anyone wants to talk to us afterwards, they can come up and talk to us? We can make that work at a small scale. So I did dozens of those before I then got started people offering to pay me to speak. So, it was like I did a good job on stage and people found me engaging. So they're like, oh, can we have you at our next conference? How much is it? I'm like, well, okay.
Just going to do it for free?
I was going to pay.
I was going to pay you to do it. That's awesome.
That's incredible. And so is there a common theme that you see people messing up when building out this SALT method for their profile?
There's a lack of empathy, a lack of radical empathy, where the biggest mistake is that you think people care, have time for you, and don't judge you. And people do judge you, they don't have any time and they don't care. So if you start with this empathy of, I have to hook people's attention, I have to give them value, huge amounts of value, I have to tell them why they should care, I have to meet them where they are. So I see people messing this up by talking about what's important to them. All that sort of stuff. It starts to raise alarm bells, right?
Here?
Yeah, right.
Who would be here? That has to be UPS or something.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. Continue.
So if we basically, if there's no empathy, you talk about yourself, you talk about what you're interested in, you don't cover the things that your audience is interested in, you don't allow people to meet you where they are, right? So a key idea is meet people where they are, talk to them about the things that matter to them, and then take them on the journey. So, like you see the people who do it so well, like let's say Gary Vee, he meets people, like he does things like go to garage sales and buys things and then sells them on eBay. He doesn't need to do that, but he knows that that's where his audience, their head is at. So he's taking them and meeting them at something that they can relate to. He's not necessarily taking them in and showing them how to pitch a $5 million brand deal. He's meeting people with the basics of getting started and all of that sort of stuff. And a lot of people went on a journey with Gary, that they heard about Gary, they learned something from him, and then they start learning more over time. So meet people where they are, take them on the journey, have radical empathy. Social media is about radical empathy. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of others. And even that experience of looking at yourself through Google and saying, I am who Google says I am, that's a radical empathy exercise. It's the exercise of saying, what must it be like for a stranger to Google me and see whether they should spend any time or effort looking at my profile.
All right, and hit us with the fifth and final P.
The fifth and final P, we can't talk about. It's the one that makes all the money. It's the one that is like by far the most lucrative P, and that is partnerships, partnership deals. So partnership deals is where you play what I would call the multiply game. So the multiply game is where your time and energy and effort multiplies with someone else's effort, and you both get a way bigger result than you could do on your own. So for example, let's say you meet someone who has spent the last 10 years building up a email newsletter of 250,000 emails, and they've got this massive email newsletter. They've spent 10 years on that. And let's say you've spent the last 10 years doing a ton of research, and you've created a really valuable report, and that valuable report is deeply interesting research that took 10 years to get to. Now, if you go and try and shill that on your own and try and get an email newsletter, it's going to take you another 10 years to get people interested. And if this person tries to go and create an amazing deep report, it's going to take 10 years to do that. But if the person with the email newsletter partners with the person who has the deep report, then suddenly this 200,000 people suddenly go, wow, thank you so much for giving me that data. This person gets the access to the fame. This person gets the access to the value. So suddenly a lot more gets created in the process there. So I like to put together partnerships that tick 3-part partnerships: brand, distribution, and product. So brand, distribution, and product is like if we said Nike, they want to get into women's tennis. Rather than trying to just simply build a brand, they go, well, who already's got the biggest brand? Serena Williams. So let's just do a deal with Serena. So now we have a big brand with women's tennis. Distribution, who's already got distribution? Walmart. So let's make Serena Williams stuff that's available in Walmart. Who already creates apparel? Fruit of the Loom. Let's get Fruit of the Loom to be our exclusive product provider. They're going to produce a set of apparel products that will sell in Walmart with Serena Williams on there. So they can say brand, product, distribution. Let's pull those 3 things together. Away we go. Now we have a really powerful, like we've played the multiplier game.
Do you see any examples of how a partnership in the opposite way can actually hurt somebody?
Yeah, I mean, an ill thought through partnership would be, where you're not aligned on values, you're not aligned on outcomes. Someone wants a quick win where you're trying to build a long-term brand, so the timeframes are out of alignment. Someone has, compromised brand or morals, and it just doesn't work. So, if you took some of the influencers, who like maybe Jake Paul, Logan Paul, those kind of guys are certainly not going to be suitable for different brands, but they're going to be fine for other brands. But if the values alignment isn't right, but ultimately, putting together good partnerships is an art form. It's a skill, and it's about creating alignment with players. But the alternative of not doing that is basically you have to do everything on your own, and there's just not enough time in your life to do everything on your own. You cannot do it. It's physically impossible. Now, here's an interesting thought experiment. If I said to you, I'm launching a new business, we intend to do $12 million worth of sales in year 1. You go, how are you going to do that? I say, we're launching a new business. We're partnering with Richard Branson. He's going to package what we do into every single person who buys a Virgin flight, and it's going to be automatically packaged in. Now you would say, how come it's only doing $12 million in year 1? It must be, that sounds small. See, in the context of the right partnership, anything seems possible. It feels like, of course. Of course you would make $12 million if you partnered with Richard Branson and packaged it all in automatically into every flight. So it's like the partnerships dictate how much money you will make. So if you're sitting there working hard and every day you turn up to your agency and do another day of hard work, that's called an addition strategy. You're just adding another day. If you spent that day partnering with let's say you took 3 days. Day 1, I'm going to make a list of partners. Day 2, I'm going to outreach to partners. Day 3, I'm going to talk to partners and present a partnership opportunity. Now you're playing the multiply game where you're multiplying your last 10 years with their last 10 years. and you're getting a big result.
We're getting there a lot faster too. Man, you're stronger together.
Seriously.
Totally.
Way stronger together. I think many of the people that listen to our show right now are solo operators doing everything by themselves, doing every single portion of the business, doing the outreach, sending the invoices, doing every single thing. And you are going to be so much more powerful the day that you
Let
delegate
me give you
those
one
duties.
sentence.
Yeah,
One
tell us.
sentence that is such a powerful sentence. Somebody woke up this morning with the resource that you want. Partner with them. So there is a situation where you say, oh, my agency would take off if I just had 250 grand. Someone woke up with 250 grand, or 3 people woke up with 100 grand, and they are looking for a return on investment. They don't have an agency to get any money back from it. They're like, well, I already have loads of property and I have loads of, other investments. I'm interested in backing entrepreneurs. Someone woke up having that idea, having that thought. So rather than trying to save up 300 grand, go and talk to angel investors and partner with them. Find out what they want, figure out how to structure a deal so that they get what they want, you get what you want. Someone woke up famous, right? So think about it like this. In LA, there are so many people around here within 3 miles of here who have 2 million followers, 3 million followers, 5 million followers. So they wake up famous every day and they're like, but how do I make money out of this fame? I don't have products and services. I don't have anything to recommend. I don't want to go start that stuff. I don't want to have to go and start a new business or build a software platform or this. I just want to turn my fame tap on and like someone else does it and then I make the money. So they want the partnership. So your job is to figure out who would I partner with, build a list of all the potentials, and respectfully and strategically reach out, do the partnership deals, make the money together.
Incredible. Okay, we've gone through the 5 Ps.
Yeah.
I think I would love to do the workshop.
I think we do it. I think let's hop into it. Let's get that top down.
I haven't delivered enough.
Oh no!
No, you've delivered.
You've delivered so much.
We also have like a ton of other questions for you, but
I got to tell you though, guys, about my experience yesterday.
yeah.
So I went out and I went to the art store to get this poster board, right? And I'm a guy that likes to park in places I probably shouldn't park. Okay, and I pull up to a meter. I really don't like paying for the meters.
Yeah.
Okay, it bugs me.
I'm above that.
Bugs me to pay for those damn meters. I'll take that ticket. Take that $50 ticket that I thought was going to be. So I pop in the art store. I'm there for literally 5 minutes. I look at the signs. I'm like, I'm good. It's 6:03. Thing ended at 6 o'clock. Okay. So I'm like, I'm good. It ended at 6.
You should have been good.
I don't even have to pay. Got an electric car too.
Yeah.
It's free to park on this thing.
They should be paying me.
I pop out and I see a tow truck. I go, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? I like, you can't take the car. And he goes, I'm taking the car. I'm like, you're not taking that car. I'm leaving, dude. The little parking guy is behind me. He goes, you can't park there. This is a towaway zone past 6 o'clock. And I look at, there's like 14 signs on the damn thing. You have to like, decipher Morse code.
Chat GPT.
Yeah, to like understand what this sign means. And he goes from 6:30 to 7:30. And it was like, or 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, they were going to tow me. That guy was literally about to pop the change. I reversed. I scurried out of there. I see that there's a damn ticket on it. I'm like, oh, it's like a $50 ticket, $163 ticket. So it's all good, but we have to use these markers. There's $170 markers.
Yeah, we gotta
get some.
We
use
gotta
out
claim
of
that ticket.
We
as
gotta claim that
tax
ticket.
deduction.
Let's get it firing up. We are back. We got the top down angle for you guys to be able to see Daniel's drawing. So if you're over on Spotify, you're on Apple Podcasts, hop over to YouTube. It helps the boys out a ton. Drop us a like. Okay.
and you'll be able to see.
You'll be able to see
drawing.
what Daniel's drawing. These beautiful markers, along with the parking ticket that is under the thing, and it's all good. So, Daniel, we're meeting with you today about our business, about our podcast business. Now, what we have is an awesome show that is centered for creative people, helping them go from being a little rock, we call it. You have just barely your camera. Maybe you don't even have a camera, to being a full-time working professional. So those are the people that we serve and that we help out on this show. Videographers, photographers, I feel like that's our main core group. And I think with this, go ahead. You want to cut me off?
No, go for it.
We're creating a product right now that is in the works to be able to help people with the business side of what they're doing, to not be completely in the weeds as creators doing all the things, and to actually be successful, how to position themselves as a content creator or a filmmaker or a photographer. That is, I feel like, going to be our core offering. I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, we have dreams and aspirations and goals of creating, more products. And we really wanted to talk to you about how you feel, or what you feel like we could create, and kind of help us, narrow in our offer and just think about the product ecosystem, like you were talking about earlier.
So here's what I would do, right? So first of all, we want to figure out the end. Where do you want to get to at the end of your business journey, right? So we need to create an end state. An end state is, what does it look like when we're happy, when we're done? Now, there's only really two end states that are worth pursuing. One's called lifestyle and one's called performance. So lifestyle business is fun, freedom, flexibility, great income, live and work from anywhere. Performance, we can sell it for more than 10 million, right?
I think we go lifestyle.
I think we go lifestyle. Is there a world where we could do both?
No.
But okay, great. So there's no way we can do both. Also, because we are the show, we find it like, I don't know if we could sell it necessarily.
You could sell it.
Okay.
Right? So when we sell a business, there's three main things that have to happen. So number one, we have to have proprietary intellectual property. So this is intellectual property that's unique to this business. This is essentially the asset that this business possesses, right? So that could be data, could be software, could be intellectual property, traditional intellectual property, but there is a proprietary asset. Second thing is we need a loyal team. And normally we need about 30 people. So in order for you to have a team that is not founder dependent, you need about 30 people working on the team, because once you hit about 30, the founder is a little bit of like an afterthought. It's like, yeah, we're busy, we do the thing, and the founder comes and goes, and sometimes they're around and sometimes they're not around, but there's always work to be done anyway. And there's actually a general manager who's running things, and I have more connection with the GM than anyone else. Founder tends to just talk to the general manager, and then the general manager tends to work with the team. So there's normally about 30 people. And then the final thing we need is what we would call, in software, we call this monthly recurring revenue. MRR. Yep. So this is basically, we have recurring revenue contracts, and essentially when we build a performance business, we are building these three things. Roughly speaking, the minimum size for a performance business as a small one is 5 million in revenue. Right, so 5 million, that would be annualized. So call this 400,000 a month, right? Something like that.
Okay.
So that would be a baby performance business. Ideally, we want to get to more like 1 million a month, right? So that's our performance business. Now, when we can sell that, we can sell that for 10 million plus. It's a life-changing experience. It's a great, like, that's a great outcome. Now, a lifestyle business is going to be a bit different. This, we prioritize fun, freedom, and flexibility. That's what we want to do. We're going to have a small team of about 8 people. Small would be 6, big would be 12, but somewhere between, like, that is where we're going to end up. So we're going to have a small team. We're going to have an ascending transaction model or a product ecosystem that is proprietary, that's ours, right? And we're going to keep it kind of small. And typically a big lifestyle business is going to be 5 million. So that's going to be upper limit. That's going to be a top size for a lifestyle business. So you got to kind of pick, do I want to build something that's fun, freedom, flexible, built around our personal brand? It's hugely important that you're a key person of influence here. Like, it almost never happens if you're not. And then over here, it's hugely important that you're doing something like software or media or agency or like formalized intellectual property. And it's important to get there, that you're a key person of influence. But when we sell it, there'll be multiple key people of influence associated with that brand.
Let's go with lifestyle.
Yeah,
seems more up our alley.
Let's go with lifestyle.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's a great decision, right? It's the times that we live in. You can actually do that. So that's great. Okay, so the key idea is that we reverse engineer the future, and we're going to go through a series of stages. And the stages are figuring out what market we should be in and how much we should charge and all of this sort of stuff. So the first process that we go through is called ideation. And ideation is where we come up with multiple ideas. You want to have like at least 5 to 10 ideas. One thing that I'm cautious of is that you guys feel pretty fixed on what you want to be doing, but the market hasn't bitten your arm off for this just yet. So you want to be actually a little bit more flexible, a little bit more open, and have at least 3, 4, 5 ideas. So one idea might be we're going to help creatives with the business side. Another idea might be we're going to help massive banks be a little bit more cool. Total different ends of the spectrum, but you could probably do either of those things. So the thing is that if you like, and either business idea would allow you to actually have a lot of fun, freedom, and flexibility. Like, you would only need 5 major corporate clients paying you a couple $100,000 a year, and then you still have your podcast, you still have all of this. All of that's, I mean, that's what Gary Vaynerchuk has done, but at a very big scale. He has his podcast and he has his personal brand, But behind the scenes, he makes all the money with big brands and big corporates. So there's a fatal flaw in what you've already described to me, which is that you're targeting people who, by definition, don't have money. And that's a horrible place to start. The best place to build a business is targeting people who have problems, but no time, and they have loads of money. So they want to throw money at problems, not time at problems. They're the best clients. The best clients are the ones who say, I have loads of money, loads of problems, no time. If you can solve my problems, I will throw money at you over and over and over again. I will never stop throwing money at you if you can keep solving problems for me. That's what you build a business on. Now, when you say, oh, I've got a group of people who are broken and need fixing, that's a very hard client. That's good to great is way easier to make money than broken and needs fixing or starting and needs going, right? So like, think about it like this. If you could work with an existing race car driver to drive 2 seconds faster around the track, that's worth $1 million. But if you can teach a kid how to drive for the first time, it's worth $30. Right. So one thing that I'm more worried about with you guys is that you haven't gone through a process of ideation. You've just come up with an idea and you're a bit fixed on it. Fair?
You're fair. Yeah.
So what do? We go through and we create 10 ideas. We won't do that now, but like we want to say, what is our valuable intellectual property? Who would find it valuable? Could we do it as software? Could we do it as training and education? Could we do it as an agency model? Could we do it as a done-for-you solution? Could we sell access to something? So you want to play this game of like, what might it look like? One thing that's really fun to do is just ask ChatGPT. So you can say, here's my background, here's my skills. Give me 10 ways I could turn those skills into a business. ChatGPT is really good at it. So
we've been talking about it this past week of how insane ChatGPT is.
And it's getting better every day.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
This is the worst it's ever going to be right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So ask ChatGPT for 10 different business ideas based upon your set of skills. Tell it about who's in the team. What does everyone do? What you'd say, what know-how or unique skills might I have? How would I turn that into 10 different business ideas? So that's called ideation. You're just getting ideas out. So now we need to go through a process of testing ideas. So the first thing we want to do is we want to understand how teams evolve. Teams go from 2 people, and we call these scout teams. Then we have a 4-person team, and we call these campaign teams. And then we have an 8-person team.
He's busting out the red.
Oh, we got red. Oh, we got red.
We got red. Red is in the house.
Okay.
Right? So an 8-person team. So here's what happens. So a scout team, and then a campaign team, and then a core team. So for lifestyle. So a scout team is answering 2 questions. Can we sell it? Can we sell this? Can we build this? Or can we deliver it? Can we sell? Can we deliver? And that's really what you're doing as a scout team. So if I was launching a new business, I'm going to send one of you out to try and see how many clients are there and how much they're willing to spend. And then I'm going to send one of you out to try and figure out, can we create an offer that we can deliver and that would be profitable and like we could just deliver it at scale. So someone's thinking about how much value can we sell? How much value can we deliver? And those are the 2 questions. And it's all about like waiting lists, expressions of interest forms, coming up with multiple brochures, putting them in front of customers, seeing how they respond, sitting down with little slide deck presentations. So like I personally, in this phase, I love physical brochures where we actually print out a physical brochure and we go, hey, we're launching this. What do you think? Right? We're going to do this. These are the case studies. These are the testimonials. This is like our method. And I'm putting, if I can't do that, maybe I use an iPad and we do slide deck. But I'm just going out and talking to customers and seeing all of this. Now I'm looking for a problem that people are willing to throw money at. All right. So this may rule out your current idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm down to rule it out.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So once we figure that out, we're then going to say, okay, have we decided which idea we're going to double down on? Now we at least want to be scout teaming at least 3 ideas. So we're super open at this point, and it could be, it's like we're not going to be fixed on anything. It's like asking the customer, we're thinking of doing this. And they're like, not really interested in that. Is there anything you think we should be coming to you with? Yeah, I wish you would come to us with like a solution around this way. Okay, cool, amazing. How much would you be willing to pay for that? So you're asking those questions while you're scout teaming. And a great result is expressions of interest, pre-sale agreements, waiting list, like proper waiting list, right? That's scout team. Our campaign team is where we've decided on the one idea that we're after. And now what we're going to do is have one person who's going to be the face. We'll call them the key person of influence. And they're going to open relationships. We're going to have someone in sales and they're going to close sales. We're going to have someone in delivery or operations, right? Fulfillment. And we're going to have someone called a Swiss Army knife. So a Swiss Army knife is just going to bounce between the team, making stuff happen. They could do a bit of admin, executive assistant, finance, bookkeeping, or any of that. But they're like just generally helping out. This person's just focused on sales. This person's just focused on happy customers. And this person's focused on repping the business. Like they're out there opening doors, making new sales, getting the word out that we exist, right? And that's your first little campaign team. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, what you want to measure here is you want to measure laps. Laps is leads, appointments, presentations, sales. How many leads do we generate as a team? Largely the key person of influence is leads. And then can we book appointments and presentations, sales? And then once we've made sales, can we keep people happy? Like, are they, like, we might measure something called an experience score. Like, how did we do? Would you rate us out of 10? Would you recommend us? Would you write a review? On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to write a review for others? Right? So those kind of things. So that's leads, appointments, presentations, and experience scores. So that's our campaign team. And our job as a campaign team is really just to ramp up above 6-figure revenue. So we want 100,000 to $1 million of revenue with the 4-person team here. Any questions about that?
No questions.
Making sense?
Yep.
So now that's happening and it's all working. Okay, so what are we doing now? Now we're really doubling down on this key person of influence.
I have a question.
Go for it.
I feel like both Brayden and I are both in this, in our business and with the podcast, like we're both key people of influence. How would you navigate that?
You could definitely do a little bit of both in terms of like the podcast and all of that. But if you're really wanting to go fast growth, you really want one of you who's like front facing out there being the face and one of you who's behind the scenes making sure the customers are happy. And the two of you are seen as credible, highly credible, but one of you opens the doors and then one of you says, my job is to look after you from here. And that is way more powerful. So if the two of you are out the front, you're still going to need someone who's equally as motivated to look after the customers and keep them happy. So you're going to need extra people. And for every extra senior person, you need like $1 million worth of revenue. So if you've got 2 senior people in a business, the business isn't going to feel good until it's $2 million plus. It's not going to feel proper, like a proper business. You need $1 million per senior person as a minimum. It's going to be great when you get to a couple of million per senior person. So if there's 2 of you and you get to $4 million, you're going to be having a great time. But if you have to bring in 3 or 4, now you've got to be a proper serious business to make this lifestyle. So I would say that what you really want is one of you is like opening doors and one of you is like welcoming in the clients and keeping them happy. And you work together like boom, 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 right? So in a basketball example, right, you want to have someone who passes the ball and someone who slams dunk, slam it in, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us this third.
So this is where you become the lifestyle business. So you've got the key person of influence and you want to elevate them as much as possible. Make sure that they're on all the podcasts, on all the YouTube channels.
All the content.
Writing a book, right? And then this one here is our like head of ops or head of business, right? So we'll call them the biz manager, right? So this is the person who runs the show. They actually run the business. And then we've got someone in sales, someone in marketing, we've got someone in admin and like financial control, and then we've got someone in delivery and someone in IT or media, right? So we've now got like basically a delivery team, a sales and marketing team, and an admin finance team. And we can kind of get a few people around here. So we could have a few extras. So let's say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We could have a few salespeople, we could have a few delivery people, and now we're up to 12 people, and that's totally fine. 12 is about as big as you want to go. 12 is quite where you need more management and leadership and systems. It becomes less of a lifestyle business at 13, 14, 15. So you kind of want to try and engineer and build everything to avoid going over 12 people. And
are many of the creators that you've worked with in the past that are key persons of influence, are they with like, what have you seen their team size wise around? Is it usually
12 is what I
12?
shoot for.
Okay.
Whenever they go over that, they end up with all the dramas. So you have team members who are falling out. You have team members who are sleeping together. You have the team splits into two. So the sales team go off and have their own chats and their own conversations, and the delivery team are having their own chats and their conversations. So it's not one team.
You get clickiness and
yeah,
whatnot. Okay.
yeah, it divides and all that sort of stuff. So with anyone who wants a lifestyle business, I really push them. Make your revenue through product sales, make your revenue through partnerships, through media, through content, through bigger followings, but just keep that core team 12. If you need to outsource elements, like let's say you want to outsource a particular non-core function and you find a good supplier and that's not part of the team, but it's like you can just pay them and they can reliably deliver, fine, that's not part of the team. But the core team, we want to keep it 12 or less.
That'd be like a customer relationship success team that's based somewhere else or something.
Yeah, you could.
That's an example.
Yes, sometimes the CS team, they have to be intimately connected to the business and they have to be on the team meetings and they have to connect. But potentially you could have a CS manager who's the CS person in the Philippines, and that's your top CS person. And then they have 3, 4, 5 people who aren't on the team meetings, but that person is responsible for having the CS team. So that can happen. But yeah, ultimately you're looking for like how many people are on the Monday morning meeting? It's like no more than 12. How many are on the Friday afternoon debrief? No more than 12. Like your key meetings are 12 people or less.
Okay.
I noticed there's no Swiss Army knife for the core team.
It breaks apart. So like this salesperson, you've now got a sales and marketing person, whereas they were doing a bit of sales and marketing. The Swiss Army knife was like admin and finance and a bit of that. So they kind of broke into a few roles.
More specialized things.
Yeah.
Okay.
The business manager, admin and finance was kind of like our Swiss Army knife. Mm-hmm. And our delivery person was also a bit of media and IT. So the roles just start breaking out a bit. When you get to be a bigger business, sales becomes appointment setting, closing, customer success, customer service. Like it just breaks finely into all the things that a salesperson used to do. Now there's like, 6 people doing that.
String of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So
interesting.
So this is from a team perspective. We're going 2, 4, 8, and that's as big. That's really as big as we're going to go, or 12, right?
Sure.
Now in the army, same thing. 2-person scout team, 4-person fire team, 8-person section squad. Right. That's exactly how they run it as well.
Wow. Okay. Now let's dive into some of the products that you've been seeing and kind of how these ecosystems make sense and make these people very successful.
Yeah. So what we need is a product ecosystem. Okay, so here's what we need. So the first product is gift. So this is something that feels like a gift. It's for free. And there's no strings attached. So
lead magnet.
No,
not really.
No.
Fuck myself.
A gift is like a podcast.
Okay.
Like I can anonymously watch the podcast on YouTube, and I can get so much value from it. And I go, damn, these guys didn't even ask me for anything off the back of this. Like maybe a like or a subscribe, but it's like, what an amazing gift. Like that's just so cool. That's generous. They've just given away like so much value. That's amazing. So that's that generosity, that gift that you're just giving something to the world. This is for attention. So you want to capture attention through the gifts that you give. And you don't want to put any barriers in the way of it. Just like let people have value. They're busy. They don't want to trust you just yet. Let them have some value. Over the next one is called product for prospects. So product for prospects, this is like a very small commitment, but it's a commitment. So this is what we call lead magnets. Now over here, it's on the other side of data capture. There's definitely got to be data captured here to get the product for prospects. So you fill in your data and you get the lead magnet. You fill in your data, you get access to the event. You can fill in the data, you get access to the thing that is the product for prospects. So if I'm running a workshop and it's like, $50 and it's half a day and you get to come, you got to register, you got to pay $50 and now you get the product for prospects. It's not my core business, but it's just a way of engaging. You watched the podcast, you loved it. Now fill in this and get this. Best product for prospects. I love what's called an assessment. So an assessment is basically like a scorecard. Let's say you were building a social media agency. Let's do a social media assessment as to where you're currently at. If you were building a fitness business, let's do a fitness assessment. So this is called assessment-based selling. It's how the medical world works. We give you an X-ray and then we tell you what we're going to do after the X-ray. We give you an MRI and then we tell you what we're going to do after the MRI. So this is assessment-based selling. So your main thing is sell the assessment. So it's like you don't have to make a decision. Just the decision is to have a closer look at what you've currently got. So if I was a life coach, I'm going to do something called a wheel of life assessment. You're going to answer 20 or 30 questions and it's going to tell me where your life is strong and where it's weak and where you're happy and where you want to improve. So it's a wheel of life assessment. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm just going to say, let's do a wheel of life assessment. So data, right? So you give me your name, your email address and all of that, and then we'll give you an assessment. Another product for prospects is called a discussion group. So would you like to join our exclusive discussion group? So we run it on WhatsApp, or we run it on Facebook, or we run it on LinkedIn, or we have another platform that we use. So you register to get access to a special discussion group. So that's really, really powerful. And then the third one that I love is an intro workshop. So an intro workshop is an introduction to blank. So an introduction to social media marketing, an introduction to building personal brand, an introduction to losing weight, an introduction to improving your romantic love life, right? So it's just an introduction to blank, an introduction to building wealth, an introduction to whatever.
And would that be like over a webinar?
Could be a webinar, could be Zoom, could be a live physical event. Some of my best, like for high-end stuff, really high-end, private dinners, private lunches. Like this is an introduction. We're going to have a private dinner. We're going to have an introduction to blank and lunch. Come along as my guest, right? You've been hand selected to come along to a special, like let's say you want to sign up 500 grand clients or 100 grand clients. And you say, hey, we're reaching out to you because we know you're the marketing manager for XYZ brand. We've noticed what you're doing. We think that you'd really get great value from being at a dinner that we're hosting. And the dinner is some of the top most influential people in this. There's going to be 12 people who have hand selected. Would you like to attend the dinner? It's sponsored. There's no cost. We just need you to commit to coming to the dinner. It's at a really nice restaurant. It's private dining. And there's going to be a half an hour discussion in between courses about X, Y, and Z with a special guest, such and such. That is such a great way to sign up $500,000 clients.
Go to Mastro's.
Well, you did that when you first moved to the UK.
We saw that.
I've done that many times. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've done boat parties. I've done private dining. Like I'm a big believer. If you want to go high end, you just pick a high end restaurant. You get people around a table. Private dining costs you a couple of grand to put it on. People turn up because other people are turning up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you leverage. You can go to say, "Hey, we got Jake coming," and they're like, "I really want to."
State Farm?
Yeah, from State Farm. I really want to hang out with Jake.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's product for prospects. We haven't made any money yet, right? So here we're having a sales meeting. So a sales meeting is you've attended the product for prospects, you've had the assessment, you're in the discussion group, you've been to the introduction. Let's have a one-to-one sales meeting. Let's talk, right? And the sales meeting is going to lead into the core product sale. So the core product sale is going to be a package, a transformation. Always think transformation. This is going to take you from this to this. You're currently here. You want to be there. There's these obstacles are in the way, right? We're going to get you from there to there, right? So we're going to get past all these obstacles. We're going to get you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. And we're going to give you a nice path of least resistance. It's our job to get you from here to here. That's a compelling presentation. It's our job to get you from where you are to where you want to be without hitting these obstacles. That's not your problem anymore. It's our problem, right? So you
could be done for you.
It could be done for you. It could be done with you. Or it could be a set of tools, right? So all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our core. And then once someone gets the core, we want to give them service. and the service is above and beyond what they were expecting. So they feel an emotional uplift that it was like better than they thought. Now, because of that emotional uplift, they're now open to what we call product for clients. And product for clients is the ongoing subscription value. Every single month, I keep getting value into the future. So think about like BMW, their core product is cars. So we'd say, selling a car. And then over here, we have finance, insurance, and servicing.
Boom.
So essentially, if they look after you with the car, now, believe it or not, BMW, I think, makes 3% margin on a car.
Yeah, but it's a service.
But
really?
The service where they make all their damn money and for the insurance.
They make like 30% on these products.
I saw this on a business on a YouTube video. They broke it all down.
They only make 30% because of the cars liquidating all the costs.
Mm-hmm.
So the cars absorb all the costs of revenue. The cars generate the revenue that runs the business. The financial services, the insurance, the servicing, all of that is the profit, but it's only profitable because it's part of the ecosystem.
Because the car is solid.
Yeah.
They want to feel.
Because if you took the cars away, if you took the car away, then how are you going to generate business here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're going to have all this stuff that has to happen, and this will drop from 30% down to 3%.
Yeah.
So you need the ecosystem. So this is for attention. This is for trust. From a business perspective, this is for revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you profit.
Profit.
Yeah. Which is why we actually need the 4. If we don't have attention and trust, we don't have enough clients. If we don't have a core offering, we don't have enough revenue. And then if we don't have ongoing stuff, repeat business, recurring revenue, we don't have profit or valuation.
Okay. So you hear a lot about, or something that's emerged over the last couple of years is like Patreon, right? Where it's like, that's a subscription and it's exclusive content, all that kind of stuff. In my mind, that's like typically where my mind goes. And then if we think about that, I'm like, well, fuck, then it's like more work to record more like episodes of the podcast or create more content. Then we have to hire somebody else to like edit it, and feels a little bit more of like a headache and a lot more work than it would be worth it.
Totally.
So maybe we could workshop something that's a subscription model.
Well, it's very simple. The reason that things like Patreon don't work for most people is because all of that is called a J-curve. So J-curve is where you lose money before you make money. So let's say, for example, I'm going to set up a restaurant, right? So I'm going to have to take out a lease, and I'm going to have to set up a kitchen, and I'm going to have to hire people, and I'm going to have to train them and buy ingredients, and I'm going to have to do all this sort of stuff. So I've just spent all this money, and then someone spends and let's say here there's like a mini J-curve and there's a big J-curve. So once the restaurant's up and running, there are just costs of running that business. I might have to sell 3,000 meals each month to break even. And then I only make money when I get beyond 3,000. So a successful month has to be like 5,000 meals. But if I could do anything less than 3,000, I'm losing money. Then there's the big J-curve, which was the setup costs. So in order to cover the setup costs, I might have to have this underlying debt of 30,000 meals, right? Or I don't know, maybe 300,000 meals just to cover all the setup costs of the restaurant. So if we take that concept and we zoom down to just a Patreon deal, let's say a podcast episode costs $3,000 to produce and all of that sort of stuff. And let's say that you get subscribers who pay $6 a month, and they want at least one episode, right? So now we have to have 500. So just 500 goes into the J-curve of
to make it break.
Yeah. So you got to get into these volumes. Now, the opposite of this is where you sell packages. So imagine that imagine you have a sponsor, one sponsor, and that sponsor pays $3,000 per episode, right? So that's the deal. They pay the $3,000 for your sponsorship, right? So now you've done away with the J-curve. So it doesn't matter. You've already covered the costs of production just on that one sponsorship sale, and it doesn't matter if anyone subscribes or not. So now you've done away with the J-curve. So your core business was selling sponsorships to cover the revenue that was needed to run the business. But now you do sell Patreon, you add that in, and now if you have 100 people subscribing, well, that's all profit. So it's like, okay, great, I'm making $600 a month of profit because the sponsor covered this. So the super, super smart podcasters, they go out before they've produced a single episode and they sign up sponsors and they say, we want to spend $30,000 a month on production. We want a gold sponsor who's going to pay 10 grand. And we want some silver sponsors who are going to pay 5 grand. So we're going to have, one of these, and we're going to have 5 of these. And now we have all of our costs of production covered. And then we're going to make money on YouTube and Patreon and all of that. So core product is sponsorship. Product for clients is subscription revenue.
But to be able to pitch the sponsor, you kind of have to be a key person of influence for the brands to be interested.
You'd be surprised.
Okay.
You'd be surprised. Yes, they need to see credibility, right? So here's how you might approach this. You might say, we've already signed up our first 10 guests and they've agreed they're going to come on the podcasts. So what most people do is they make this huge mistake of like running around doing stuff as opposed to getting agreements for stuff. So like they're running around making podcasts and all of that sort of stuff. And let's say instead I approached some big name people who were going to be guests on the podcast. And I said, we're going to be launching a podcast in 2025 and we're going to get some major sponsors and we're going to put a budget together. And every single month we've got an ad budget, we've got a production budget. It's going to be really, really great. It's going to be like this. These are some of the designs. Once we're up and running and we've secured all the sponsorship, would you want to be a guest? And they say, yeah, sure. I say, can I just get you to block out some time and date in a year from now that you've committed that you something basic that you've committed that you're going to be on the show, that you're going to be a guest once we can show that we've got everything up and going. Yeah, sure, whatever. I'll confirm that on email. So then when I go to the sponsors, I say, these are our first 10 guests. We've got this person who's got 20 million followers and we've got this person who runs this amazing $1 billion brand. And we've got this person who does this incredible thing. These are the first 10 guests that we've got for season 1, right? Do you want to be our season 1 gold sponsor? We would estimate that this is a $25,000 opportunity, but we're going to come in with you guys. Season 1's only going to be 10 grand, right? And you're going to have the first option to renew at the full price, but for season 2 you can renew, but you're going to come in cheap, right? Just production costs only. And they go, okay, it seems pretty good. So now we're putting together the agreements. So that's kind of how more the way I think. I think in terms of like I'm building out my plan as opposed to just being busy.
Yeah,
it's super interesting because right now, like for the podcast, right, we have brand sponsors that are on a monthly commitment to us, right? So that is covering all overhead for us.
Amazing,
right? So we have that now.
Shout out to the sponsors.
Shout out to the sponsors. Shout out to all of them. We also have like our first digital product that we released a few months ago, doing super well. We don't even have to talk about it. It just kicks. Like
nice.
People just go down to the description. It's there.
What's the price point?
It's $57.
Okay. Yep.
So it gets in. It's a pricing guide.
So by the way, this $57 perfectly fits here.
great.
Okay.
So that $57 is a great product for prospects.
And we've sold nothing else. We've sold absolutely nothing else. And we're now trying to think and develop how do we turn this into a full-fledged operation.
So how many a month might you sell of the 57?
Let me do some quick mathematics here.
Like, are we talking tens, hundreds?
10, I would say anywhere between like 30 to 50.
Great.
Yeah.
When someone buys that, is part of the process that they have to in some way give you data about who they are?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we expand upon that data? So rather than just name and address and email, and can we say that part of the 57 is an assessment so that we can actually gauge your starting point and see where you get to 12 months from now?
Yes. We could do that.
Amazing. So remember the purpose of this is data really more than money. It's great to have a self-liquidating cost, but really we want data. Now, if we've got someone who's here, let's say that we've got data. Inside the data collection, we're going to segment. And inside the segment, we're going to say, we got 3 segments. These people are definitely not our clients. These people, they may be our clients, and these people are definitely our clients. So we're going to ask some questions in the data to be able to figure out. Now, let's say out of 100, let's say 65 are definitely not our clients. 15 might be our clients, right? And the rest, what did we get to? 75,
we got 20 left.
We got 20 left. So it's like, these are the ones we talk to. What do we talk to them about? We talk to them about whatever our core product is.
Our core product is.
Because here's the thing. If someone's willing to spend 57, I guarantee you they're willing to spend 5,000.
Really?
Of course. Well, what is the product called?
The pricing guide.
The pricing guide. So if someone's willing to spend 57 on a pricing guide, they would be totally willing to spend 5,000, or some of them, a percentage of them, would be willing to spend 5,000 on price strategy consulting. So let's say it's a bigger business and that you say, look, we have this thing called the pricing guide where you can do it yourself, or you can have our team come in. We'll talk to 30 of your customers. We'll conduct some research. We will then come back to you with an independent pricing report. We'll find out what your competitors' pricing. So for 5,000, we do competitor analysis. We do price testing. We do market segmentation analysis, and we find out multiple price points. We look at all of these different pricing things, and we present you and your board with a price strategy and recommendations. Oh, okay. Well, that's better than us looking at your pricing guide. Like, I totally would rather do that.
Boom. Saving you time, saving you money.
So let me ask you this. Our core audience, the reason we started this show is because it's a show that we wish we had when we were younger. And every episode we try to provide as much value to like an up and coming photographer, videographer, to like help them streamline their process and get to where they want to be quicker than we did. Because I feel like that is our core audience, I guess in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe they don't have the 5,000 to spend. So is it like a positioning thing that we...
What you want is you want to do a business model that is really popular at the moment, which is like the 1% business model. And it's essentially this. So the vast majority of people get all the free stuff, and these are the up and coming guys, right? Right, they're startups. Actually, these are the up and comings. Right, these ones are early stage, really early stage. But these ones are agencies, and they're already at 7 figures. So I bet you that it's not just up and coming and early stage businesses that are listening to this. I bet you that someone listening to this has a 7-figure agency.
I see.
All right, someone, 1% of your audience are loaded with cash. It's very easy for you to listen to the loudest, largest segment of your audience, right? Think about the story of Cinderella. Cinderella, she goes to the ball. The prince wants to marry Cinderella. There's one Cinderella and there's 1,000 non-Cinderellas who went to the ball. So he has this glass slipper and he says, I'm going to roam around. Everyone's going to try on the slipper. If you fit the slipper, we get married, right? So he has a filter. He has a way of figuring out, are you Cinderella or not? Now, what you want is to have some sort of glass slipper that says, this is the noisy big part of, these are all the non-Cinderellas and we've got stuff for you and all of that. But if there's any way we can figure out if you're Cinderella, we take you to the ball, right? We get married. So you're going to pay a lot of attention here because there's so many people and they're so noisy.
Yeah.
But inside your big audience, there is definitely people who would love to throw 50 grand at you, right? 50, 100, right? For them, I will say this. It's very, very easy when you deal with creators to forget that some people have way too much money and don't know what to do with it. Right? Like, there's 2 problems in the world. There is the problem of I've got no money and I need to get some. There's the problem of I've got way too much money and I need to spend it or invest it effectively. As you get older and get into different circles, you actually start meeting way more people who have so much money and they have to invest it. Like, because think about it, the money has ended up in a small number of people's hands.
Yeah.
That's how the world works. I'm not saying that's the right way the world works, but that is how the world works. So a small number of people, like, just look at the real estate around here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Go for a walk.
There are people who pay cash for $30 million homes every day of the week in this town. those people have 30 million cash to just spend on the latest property. So there are people who have way too much money and not enough like help, support, whatever it is that they need. They need to spend or invest it wisely, but they're in the minority and they often keep it quiet. So they will passively listen to podcasts, but they're sitting there. If you give them a glass slipper, if you give them a way to figure out where they can softly, gently signal that they're interested, you may only need 3 people who pay $250,000 a year and they're super happy. And now 750 grand a year is like coming in under the radar. You're still doing all this for your major audience, but 1%, they're happy to go up there. They're the Cinderellas.
And you're helping that 1%. I love it, man. This has been incredible.
Dude, this has been awesome.
This has been an amazing podcast. I hope that you guys are getting a ton of value. We have one question for you that's left, okay? What is some advice that you would give to 18-year-old Dan before you went off on this journey?
It's the advice I give to everyone who's young, which is get a mentor.
Okay.
So entrepreneurship and success it's an apprenticeship sport. You've got to apprentice. So I did my apprenticeship. I dropped out of university. I went and worked for a startup. I worked for this guy called John. And in 2 years, I learnt the playbooks and I went off and built a 7-figure business. There's no way I would have built a 7-figure business as a 22-year-old if I hadn't have worked for John. So you need to apprentice. And doing your apprenticeship, if you were going to be a plumber, just a normal paid plumber, you'd do a 3-year apprenticeship. So like, what makes you think you're going to do one of the hardest things in the world, entrepreneurship, without doing an apprenticeship? You're crazy if you think you're going to do that. It's so complex, a lot more complex than plumbing. So it's like, if you do a 3-year apprenticeship for plumbing, you do a 3 to 7 year apprenticeship for being an entrepreneur. I was super lucky to do a 2-year apprenticeship because everything lined up. I was there at the beginning. I was employee number 3. We built a 60-person business. I had a guy who just super trusted me. I was so lucky to do a 2-year apprenticeship and make that stick. But even if I was to go back to 18-year-old Dan, I'd say still be even more deliberate about your apprenticeship and stay longer. Stay with this, like do another year, do another 2 years. Because John went on to be worth hundreds of millions. So I was with John when he went from 0 to 5-6 million of revenue, and I thought I'd learnt everything. Well, in the next 10 years, John went on to be worth hundreds of millions, right? And I missed out on all of that. So I could have probably stayed with John another 2 years and picked up way more. I still would have been a multimillionaire before 30.
Been wicked young too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's 3 things. I'll finish on this. There's 3 things in an apprenticeship, right? So the 3 things that you want is, number 1 is called self-awareness. Self-awareness is where you become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and you start figuring out, what kind of person am I? What am I good at? Am I good at sales or am I good at ops? Am I good at finance or am I good at creativity? Like what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Do I take things too personally and I need to work on that? Do I have limiting beliefs and I need to work on those, right? So part of your apprenticeship is self-awareness. The second part is called commercial awareness. So commercial awareness is the ability to spot genuine opportunities, the ability to be discerning, know how money works, know how things flow. It's the ability to know, how do we set up a Stripe account? How do we run some ads on Facebook? How do we, engage customers? How do we recruit someone? So this is all the commercial awareness skills. And then the final one is resourcefulness. So resourcefulness is, can I raise money myself? Can I recruit a team myself? Can I pick up the phone and make a sale if I need to pick up the phone and make a sale? So you're actually quite resourceful. So you've got self-awareness, commercial awareness, and resourcefulness. Now you've done your apprenticeship, and now you say, all right, cool. Now what opportunity do I go after? Now you don't do this in 3 months. You probably don't do this in 3 years, but you do, like if you were, let's say you were 18, you do this from 18 to 28, and you know that you're after self-awareness, commercial awareness, and resourcefulness, and by 28 you then go and launch, like you are so far ahead of the game. You're probably going to be worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions if you deliberately did this, especially if you get involved with a company that is intellectual property, software, data, media, finance. Right? So anything that's IP, software, data, media, finance, if you're in those industries that make tons of money, these are the industries that print money, right? Unfortunately it sucks, but like things like bricks and mortar businesses, learning how to run a restaurant is not going to be anywhere near as valuable as learning how to run a SaaS business. But if you're IP, software, data, media, finance, boom, you do your apprenticeship there, you're going to be very, very successful.
Thank you so much for coming on this
amazing.
show. I've learned so much. I mean, I feel like I just got a master's degree. Thank you, Dan. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the 505 Podcast. If you're still here, please drop us a comment, leave us a like, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.